Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's one you all can sing with us. When the Saints go marching in.
Road to Wembley Stadium, and the flags of many nations were flying over a brilliant scene as the crowds gathered for the ceremonial opening of the 14th Olympiad.
In the summer of 1948, Britain hosted the world in London. But when our basketball team stepped onto the court, it found itself in a harsh reality check, losing 7 out of 8 games, finishing 20th out of 23. There were characters, though. Trevor Davies, once a war evacuee in the U.S., coming back to shoot hoops for London Polytechnic, ended up as our top scorer. Then there's Lionel Price, who dribbled through bombed-out school gyms, played all 8 games, and later retired to a career in mattresses and property.
Come on, folks, everybody sing. Now when the Saints go marching in. Now when the Saints go marching in. Yes, I want to be in that number. When the Saints go marching.
23 teams took part. The United States romped to gold with the ease of a pub team playing in the park. If the British side was underprepared, the Americans were the opposite, fielding 5 stars from the national champion Kentucky Wildcats and backed by heavyweight coaching presence. Adolph Rupp served in an assistant role, illustrating the gulf in institutional strength and resources. Accounts of the Kentucky contingent's experience in Britain describe bemusement and culture clash. Players and coaches complained about local knowledge of the game, food, and crowd reactions.
These people know nothing whatsoever about basketball, and I would say there aren't 2 in every 100 people who have ever seen a game, but they received us graciously, did plenty of cheering, and are doing their darndest to understand. The food situation is really bad. What little they do have, they seem to mess up in cooking it. Since leaving the States, we have had no milk and only 1 egg. Give us the old USA anytime. We had a little trouble getting adjusted to the food, but the highlands with the cattle and sheep grazing on them is a sight to behold.
They were sometimes booed for being too rough or for simply being taller.
Crowds at the tournament in Haringey Arena have rocked the rafters with boos for the Americans. It's charged that the US team indulged in swearing, insulted a Chinese referee, and willfully violated the rule against talking while entering the game. United Press Dispatch, London.
Those reports captured an early post-war sporting collision, British amateur modesty up against American full-tilt athleticism and showmanship.
The funny part was, when we came there, Canada sent over X amount of tons of food for our Canadian Olympic athletes. It disappeared, nobody can find it. But the day before we left, big article, Canada was good enough to leave X amount of tons of food for the British people who are short of food.
I always remember when we came into Wembley Stadium, the first thing I saw on the scoreboard was a notice saying it's not the winning and losing, but it's the taking part, Ballon de Coubertin. And that was it. We didn't go into it for any great benefit at all, but we had a marvelous time and we were a great bunch of people.
Let's take them Saints on down one more time. Now I win the Saints. Marching, oh boy. When the Saints go marching in. Yes, I found to be in that number. Hit it when the Saints go marching in.
In the 1950s and 60s, British basketball wasn't one team. It was England, Scotland, and Wales all doing their own thing in FIBA tournaments. and only pretending to be Team GB when the Olympics rolled around. Ireland stayed out of the family entirely.
The United Kingdom is made up of England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Scotland.
The result, 3 shallow talent pools, none of them deep enough to survive on the international stage. England were the best of the bunch, which says everything. They debuted at EuroBasket 46, lost every game, and finished last. In 55, they picked up a couple of wins over Switzerland and Austria, but also got obliterated 140-44 by Poland. The kind of scoreline that makes you check if the basketball court had been swapped for a cricket pitch. By 1961, they were back to losing them all. Scotland's debut in 51 was even worse, a 103-18 loss to Czechoslovakia, which is about as close to a mercy rule as the sport's ever seen. They did beat Albania in 57, though, so there's that. And Wales never even made it to the party, which in hindsight might have been the best result of all. While we were still figuring out how to pass the ball, the global game had already exploded into geopolitical theater.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it.
The U.S. claimed gold in 52 and 56, powered by a lanky, tenacious rookie named Bill Russell.
The Olympic basketball finals between the United States and the Soviet Union. The American team, eager to show the Soviet squad how basketball should be played, led 56-27 at the half. Gold medals for the victorious American squad, 7 of whom were United States servicemen.
The United States and the Soviet Union didn't just battle in the shadows of diplomacy. They waged war on courts, tracks, and fields, turning sport into a weapon of ideology. Basketball was no exception. Between 1948 and 1972, the Soviet basketball machine roared with ruthless efficiency. 11 EuroBasket golds from a possible 13. Olympic silvers in 52, 56, 60, and 64. Bronze in 68, and then, at last, gold in Munich.
The Americans immediately filed a protest, which wasn't resolved till the following day when a 5-man jury voted 3-2 to deny the appeal. All 3 negative votes coming from Eastern Bloc nations.
All of the Soviet sporting achievements of the time were associated with acquiring the ability to fight.
Men like Kruminch and Valdmanis towered as symbols of power. Floating effortlessly, they seemed to say, this is what organized, state-sanctioned sport looks like. Back home, the battles were smaller, the venues humbler, but the passion just as fierce. In 50s England, London Polytechnic, Birmingham Dollar-Brown, and Central YMCA fought for bragging rights. In Scotland, Pleasance and Glasgow elite held court, their game sharpened by the influence of American servicemen stationed on RAF bases. Basketball wasn't just a game anymore. It was a dance, a spectacle, a statement. The Harlem Globetrotters arrived, dribbling, spinning, laughing their way into packed halls.
The famed court jesters put their incredible skill to work against the Philadelphia Spurs, gaining yet another in their long string of razzle-dazzle wins during their exhibition tour of Britain.
Meanwhile, in Aylesbury, something profoundly different was taking flight. Dr. Ludwig Gutmann at Stoke Mandeville Hospital wasn't just curing paralysis, he was rewriting what sport could be.
How important are games like these to paraplegics?
Very important, see, from both the physical and psychological point of view, but the most important is from the point of the social reintegration of the paralyzed into society.
In
In 1948, while the Olympic flame was still warming Trafalgar Square, Gutmann staged the first wheelchair archery competition.
Here's another sport that calls for strong arms and a keen eye, basketball. He shoots, and it's in. Men like these waste no time being sorry for themselves. Losing one faculty, they develop the others in compensation. They seek no pity, but they deserve our help.
By 1955, wheelchair basketball had become a fixture. A full-fledged protest on wheels became the pilot pulse of the Paralympic movement.
The 1960s brought a flicker of ambition. The Great Britain men's team re-emerged for Olympic qualifiers, still outclassed, but back in the fight. And though England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland still sent separate squads to FIBA events, a new umbrella group brought their governing bodies into the same room for the first time. It was also the decade when British clubs first dipped a toe into European waters. In 1961, Northern Ireland's Celtic BC became the first to step onto the continental stage. Through the 60s, Central YMCA, the Aldershot Warriors, and Vauxhall Motors all took their turn. But none could crack the win column. The gulf in class was clear, but the intent was there. Britain was starting to look outward. Domestically, a new national league was born. The inaugural season featured 9 teams, but 2 of the best, London Polytechnic and Central YMCA, refused to join. They weren't convinced the talent outside the capital was worth the travel. And continued to play in the local London League. The format of the new National Basketball League shifted constantly. By 1965, the league became known as the Rose Bowl and expanded to include 16 teams, including 2 from Scotland.
They came from Edinburgh, Boroughmuir Basketball Club. Born from the vision of Bill McInnes and John Tunner, 2 men who gathered an unstoppable band, the famous 5, McInnes himself, Tunner, Stuart Mel Capaldi, Brian Carmichael, and Tony Wilson. By the mid-60s, they were tearing up Scotland's hardwood. Scottish Cup champions in 66, then in 67, the first Scottish club to step into the European Club Championships.
In 1967, as Scottish champions, Bill again decided that we should go big and entered us as the first Scottish team ever to take part in the European Cup. Our opponents, the reigning European champions Real Madrid, made sure that we did not get past the first round, but for us all, including the 3 schoolboys in the team, it was a fantastic experience. Other European adventures followed, and fundraisers were needed. Again, Bill went big. Not with local bands, but instead big venues and British chart-topping acts.
The Manfreds on top of the hit parade. 5 young men on top of the world. All in the group are known as Manfred, taking the name from their spokesman, composer, organist, pianist, the bearded Manfred man himself. At the Edinburgh Mecca Palais, they'll perform the number that headed the top 20, Doo-Wah Diddy Diddy.
Our dances became famous and were the hottest tickets in town, bringing in the funds that allowed us to travel.
On our stage tonight, to our great delight, Scotland's national basketball team. So let's give them a big Heeland welcome.
In the 60s and 70s, we were regarded as one of the best teams in Britain, winning tournaments and British trophies.
When the Scottish National League tipped off in 1969, Boroughmuir simply took over. champions every single year through the next decade. A dynasty had begun. Meanwhile, in England, with the National League and Rose Bowl still in their infancy, the National Cup was still the crown jewel. In 1965, the Aldershot Warriors, an army side, toppled Oxford University in the Cup final. Oxford, though, had their own twist of stardom. In 1966, Rhodes scholar Bill Bradley arrived. Olympic gold medalist, NCAA champ, future US Senator. He captained Oxford, beat Aldershot for the National Cup, and even brought Olympia Milan to town for a BBC broadcast friendly. And yes, somewhere in the background, a young Bill Clinton was suiting up for Oxford's second team.
All the way, light blue, gleefully shouted the cheerleading team of the high school, firm friends of Cambridge in their light blue shirts. Oh dear, moaned a young undergraduate. They would be more appreciated by an American audience than an inhibited English one. Basketball in England, remarked John Weidman, the Oxford team captain and a budding young novelist, is going round in circles like aristocrats breeding. There is no new influx of blood. More startling to Americans, perhaps, than lack of money and primitive facilities is the lack of interest on the part of the press, the public, and the rest of the student body. According to Bill Bradley, somebody might say, "When do you play again?" or "What happened the last match?" "How many periods are there during a match?" asked a British onlooker. "I find the game rather mechanical. To me, they just seem to run up and score, remarked Bert Morehouse, a Cambridge sociology student. "I've just been wondering about the football results, how Spurs got on in the cup," said another.
Greaves scored.
Such is the battle basketball wages in England. In the British National Championship final on March 19th, Oxford, one of the teams, will probably be without one of its players, Bill McGrew. Bill is a zoologist, and his studies will almost certainly require that he watch birds. There were such other things to consider as the breeding cycle of black-headed gulls. Black-headed gulls will always be more important to England than basketball. John Lovesey, March 14th, 1966.
Two years later, Oxford claimed another cup. And in 1970, they met Liverpool Police in the final.
Now gather round me, sailor boys, that's listening to me plea. And when you hear me tale, you'll pity me. But I was a goddamn fool in the port of Liverpool, the first time that I came home from sea. We played off the port of Sierra Leone, and £4 a month it was me pay. With a pocket full of tin, I was soon taken in by a girl with the name of Maggie May. Whoa, Maggie, Maggie May, they have taken her away. She'll never walk down Line Street anymore. She wrote so many sailors and captains of the whalers that Daddy Robin, no good Maggie May.
The Scousers were led by Jimmy Rogers, born in Wales, raised in a Newcastle orphanage, fostered in County Durham, soldier in Germany, where he first played club ball. Back in Britain, he made Liverpool his home, building the sport from the ground up in its inner city streets.
Yeah, well, I was born in 1961 in Liverpool, hence I'm a Scouse. I went to Paddington School. That's where I discovered basketball. I was in the common room, and this guy came bursting in. Vince, you gotta help us, I'm like, what? He said, we've got a game, a basketball game, and we need you to play. I said, well, I don't play basketball. He said, well, we've only got 4. And we can't actually start the game unless we have 5.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, oh my God. So I came back in and we went to the court and he said, look, just put some kit on, put the ball in the black square, which is how you begin to teach kids.
Yeah.
And we did that and we played the game. And we actually won the game. There was a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Rogers, I didn't know at the time. He was walking around the basketball court. And at the end, he came up to me and had a massive, deep voice. Hey, young fella, I've never seen you before. Where do you play? I said, well, I've never played. He said, well, no, what team do you play for? I said, this is my first time playing. He couldn't believe it. So he said, well, would you come and play with my team? I said, well, all right. So I quite enjoyed it. Obviously, this is Liverpool in 1977-78, right? This is approaching the riots. Yeah. This is an absolutely mad situation. Liverpool 8, gangsters, drugs. And around the time I started with basketball, I'd met this guy who I didn't realize was grooming me as a gangster.
Serious?
Yeah. A guy by the name of Michael Showers. That was a 17-year-old, and he had lots of money. He was looking after all of us. I was driving his white Rolls Royce around the place. And his money to do this and money to do that and blah, blah. And I'm thinking, this is great. But, once Jimmy found out, he was like, you're not doing that again.
He's not the guy.
I said, well, he said, you're not doing that. And basketball was such a draw to me. It made me stop doing that.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'd probably be dead, man, if I hadn't done that. I have to say that. You know? Well, he had a team in Liverpool called Liverpool ATAC. And I joined that team. Jimmy was a social worker in the city. Everybody knows Jimmy Rogers down there. And that was a massive point in my life, I have to say. In the end, Jimmy Rogers ended up being my mentor for life. Absolutely for life. Because I played with the Liverpool ATAC. Within 6 months, I was playing for England. I passed my A-levels. I got admission into the London International Film School in Covent Garden. And I was going to London. And Jimmy recommended me to go and play at some team in Camden, Swiss Cottage.
Jimmy Rogers' contribution to the game of basketball can be seen in how he helped transform the lives of the people in his community. On March 21st, 1970, he cemented his legacy in British basketball history by winning the national championship.
One shot by the goal, but no closer did I find, and a policeman come and took that girl away. Then judge guilty found her of robbing a homeward bounder and paid their passage back to Botany Bay.
In comes the sergeant in the drug squad, and he said, "Hello, Jimmy, what are you doing here?" And I said something like, "One of your bastards just set me up here." And he said to me, "I'm sorry, Jimmy, we didn't know it was you." I flipped. I went off, completely off. I started lashing out, screaming. I was gone, completely gone, and they were beating the shit out of me, but I can't feel anything. The next day I was in hospital. I had broken this, broken that.
A number of people approach me and complain about the actions of certain police officers. Now this obviously grieves me, as it grieves the majority of my colleagues. Now we have a big problem. We have to recruit from the human race. And until we can find a better method of recruitment, we're going to have problems.
One of our members was stopped by the police. The next thing you know, he was punched in the stomach. He got a tooth knocked out. Now, he was subsequently charged with disorderly behavior, in which he was found guilty.
Jimmy Rogers' work with young people in Toxteth and the Liverpool 8 communities continued throughout the 70s. But tensions were rising, and prejudice and abuse of power was rife, not just in Liverpool, but across an ever more diverse and stratified Great Britain.
They're selling hippie wigs in Woolworths, man. The greatest decade in the history of mankind is over.
With so much turbulence around the country during the turn of the decade, basketball, a fringe sport imported from America without a professional league, was the furthest thing from the mind of the general public. But in Scotland, the sport was growing by leaps and bounds. Teams were improving alongside Boroughmuir and providing fine competition. By 1970, Boroughmuir had grown into a force beyond Scotland. They were knocking on the door of British supremacy, reaching the Rose Bowl final and trying to prove themselves in Europe. But just as they stood on the brink of greatness, tragedy struck.
Scottish basketball ace, 26-year-old John Tunna, captain of the Boroughmuir club, has died suddenly. Mr. Bill McInnes said, "We were all absolutely stunned to hear of John's death. It came as a grave shock to us. We could not believe it at first."
For Boroughmuir and for Scottish basketball, it was a shattering blow. Tunna wasn't just a teammate. He was a leader, a friend, and the kind of figure who gave shape to a dream. His loss left the club reeling, but they would battle on admirably. One can only imagine the great pride he would feel at the dynasty the club he helped build would go on to establish.
"80 years after the game first crossed the Atlantic, Britain's basketball scene had shifted forever. The sport for girls tag was gone. Now there were national leagues, rivalries, dynasties, and with the 1972 to 73 season, the ABBA would wipe the slate clean. A new national league and a new chapter of ambitious, chaotic, unforgettable basketball.